Well, my name's Becca Price, and I'm the communications coordinator with the River Management Society. And we want to welcome you to our River Management Roundtable from the mouths of moms. And we will talk about the incredible balancing act that working moms deal with as river managers and also balancing family life. And just kind of a note about how we got onto this topic is we host these workplace culture river management roundtables each month on the fourth Tuesday of the month. And so we try to stay apprised of different trends that are happening in the workplace, especially as they impact river managers. And we saw some studies that just showed some really negative data about working mom burnout, especially post pandemic, that we'll share with you and hopefully share some strategies for navigating that. Our presenters today are Amy Niles and Bobbie Roshone, and then also with us is Risa Shimoda, our executive director, and she'll be sharing some as well. We host river management roundtables twice monthly. Like I said, workplace culture is our theme for the fourth Tuesday of the month, and then on the second Tuesday, we talk about on the river topics, which are more operational in nature. So thank you for joining us. Um, this is just housekeeping. We just invite you to participate, to share your thoughts, respect other people's perspectives, and just be involved.
So, as Becca was mentioning, we just sort of tripped over some information about, we're looking for topics that might be of interest to folks. And, seeing a title like this is kind of sad or alarming. And knowing that we have spent the last 2.5 years adjusting to an environment that is sort of beyond our control for the most part, this is another element of what has happened in the workplace. There are many different trends in the workplace, but this was one. So this is not anti-father, anti-guy, anti-spouse, anti-partner. This is just a statement about women who are both working, have families, and have a responsibility at both in their office, even if they're working at home in their office and in their work group. We'll send links to these studies after we're done. So, another study that we saw, and we'll send this link also, that they actually talked about, Deloitte is a management consulting company, and they call this a burnout epidemic for working women, particularly now that we've been into this crazy pandemic phase of our lives for a while. So 53% of women report the stress levels higher than they were even a year ago when we were in the pandemic. And so all things related to, balance and work and life management has shifted. And that just seemed like a lot. So I think what struck me in seeing something like that in RMS, we know several women who are doing great at work, progressing, getting promoted, and liking their jobs, or seeming like they like their jobs. And not that it was like a counterbalance to this nationwide trend, but it seemed like, well, somebody's sort of figuring out how to deal with this, and maybe some better than others. And I don't know if it's because we're outdoor people or what. So we thought we would ask a couple of our members to talk about it. Um, so here they are. um, some of the elements of what could contribute to women experiencing stress more than men is these will not sound too unfamiliar to you. Women thinking that they're not good enough, thinking, saying yes too much, prioritizing the feelings of others over their own, avoiding asking for deadline extensions, um, being less likely to ask for help or for a raise. I don't know if these at all sound familiar to you, or that you could think you could relate to those. Um, so just, you know, I want to just stop here. Does this seem like oversimplification or overgeneralization, or do some of these resonate with folks who are here, even, Bobbie and Amy?
I can't say I relate to every single one of them, but like I look at the last one, like less likely to ask for help. And it took me years before I started fighting to grow my division at the city because I felt like it was self-serving. But the reality was like nobody else was operating an entire division with one person. And so it wasn't self-serving. It was something the city was going to need even one day when I left. So I could definitely resonate with that last one.
Mm-hmm.
Very much the same for me as well. Before we went into the pandemic, before I was even pregnant, we actually were just a one-person division. Our superintendent at the time didn't realize that we needed a little bit more help than what we had. Apparently I was, I could do it all, so why do I need help? Once I became pregnant and we had the pandemic, we had to switch in leadership a little bit. And my new boss is very much about how if you ever need anything, ask for help. And it's been so hard to ask because I was used to being turned down every time I asked for something. So I'm still kind of coming back out of that, and it's really hard. And I relate to a lot of these. So, especially the not good enough one.
Yeah, I know for myself, a lot of times I hear myself answering the question, why are you doing this? And the answer is because someone asked me to. There should be another reason besides that, but I just hear myself on a lot of these as well. I don't know if anyone else in the audience agrees. So that's what we saw, the trends or the articles, and then some explanations about why this might be happening. This is the Why Women Burn Out Faster Than Men article, and examples of folks who seem to be thriving despite the pandemic. So we thought we would ask these two gals to just talk about their approach. I don't know if you think about it as a strategy, but it is. And it's more than just survival, but how to, succeed and feel okay and be happy when you're doing all these different things. So why don't you guys go ahead? So I guess we'll hear from Amy first.
All right. Yeah, when you asked me to speak on the subject, I had to like think about it. It's like, what did I change from when I was a little more miserable to when I was a lot happier with my job? And my job didn't change so much as it was a prioritization in my life and like figuring out what are the things that would give me satisfaction at work and satisfaction at home. And so it took like a little bit of deep diving, but one of the questions, I had some people ask me questions and it's like, well, what's going to give you that good work-life balance? Like you like your job and you like being at home with your kids. And so what are some of those non-negotiables? And so it was easy for me to identify a few simple things. Like they don't have to be groundbreaking, but it was like being able to drop my kids off at daycare and pick them up from daycare were really big things. Like those things bring me so much joy. I enjoy doing that so much. So on days when I wasn't able to do that, I realized like, oh, I was really disgruntled with my job because it was keeping me away from something that I really enjoyed on the day-to-day basis. And then also like putting my kids to bed at night. And so like obviously in our line of work, there's sacrifices. There's weekends where I'm spending the whole day away from my kids. But I know like through communication with my boss, having those discussions and saying these are the things that are really important to me. Like I want to prioritize that I'm home by 8 p.m. every weekend day so I can put my kids to bed. And obviously knowing if something crazy happens and I need to stay there, well, that's a one-time unusual occurrence, not a every single day you're kind of expected to be there, even though maybe you don't really need to be there when you would have better work-life balance if you got to be home for that special event. So that's like one thing I would encourage other working moms and have is like kind of figure out what are those like little things that you really, really enjoy and are those things that you can prioritize in your work schedule so that if you like your job, then you're not disgruntled with your job because you're missing out on something else that you like more. And it doesn't have to be big. Again, mine is daycare drop-offs and daycare pickups. I love when they run to me at daycare and they're so excited. I hate missing that. And another thing someone had told me when I had my first baby, I have older kids too. So I have older stepkids, and I have, we'll just go through the whole thing. I have Zachary, he's 15. Wyatt is about to be 13. Lydia is 3.5. Julia is 1.5. And I'm pregnant right now with our last baby. So we have a full house with lots of kids and lots of activities. And I remember after I had my first baby, which was Lydia, it's like there's all these things for the big kids and for Lydia, and I feel like I have to be able to do everything. Like I have to be able to be the class mom and pack all the right snacks and have the kids' clothes washed and be a perfect employee. And someone said, if you treat everything like it's a glass ball, then everything that drops will break you. But you have to identify what's a glass ball and what's a plastic ball. So when you're juggling all the things in life, what's a glass ball and what's a plastic ball? Like if you forget to pack peanut butter crackers in your son's lunch, that's a plastic ball. He'll be okay. But if you forget his play or his award ceremony and you don't show up, like that's probably a glass ball. It's going to be more lasting. It's going to leave a mark. There's going to be something that's harder to repair. And that was like such an important piece of advice that I think you can apply even with your work stuff. It's like you get a call after hours. Well, is this a glass ball or a plastic ball? Like, can this really wait till the morning? Or is this something that I actually need to handle right now? And I think early in my career, it was harder to identify what was glass and what was plastic because it all just kind of felt like glass. Like I have to be perfect. And so I have to be able to do it all right now because someone, like you said, someone asked me to. But then learning to kind of like, I think it's really trendy to say like set boundaries and stuff, but like it's true, like be able to set boundaries, even if it's just a boundary you're setting for yourself. Like I don't need to check my email when I first wake up in the morning. That can wait until after I drop the kids off at daycare. But that was a habit that took like 6 months for me to break because I was so used to just rolling out of bed and checking my email. Not that I was even ready to respond or do anything. So those were a couple of the things that I just wanted to share that felt like I've grown as a working mom and as a employee in the last few years. Um, and just like having really open communication. I think most employers are going to be really receptive to you identifying like, I'm not looking to like not do my job responsibilities, but I'm looking to make my job responsibilities fit with some of these things that are really high priority for me as well. And so that has worked really favorably for me in the last few years, especially since the pandemic has hit. I don't know if I missed anything, Risa. Can you think of anything that?
No, that's great. And the glass ball, plastic ball thing, I think we'll remember that.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. I was telling a coworker that story that someone had told me, and I thought, I don't know why we didn't talk about this because it's such a good visual of like, there's things like a plastic ball is going to bounce. There's things that like, okay, there's no irreparable damage if I drop that ball. But if I drop the glass ball, well, I'm never really going to get that one back.
It's also a friendlier way to think about priorities and is this mission critical? It's just a glass ball. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Oh, that's great. And great pictures. So the boys in your pictures, in your middle picture, are older, much older now.
Yes, that was before I had Lydia. So that was a year before the picture on the right where I have her in the baby carrier. So gosh, they were both in elementary school. That's crazy. Now Zachary's a sophomore and Wyatt's a seventh grader. So we are very busy with all things football and marching band, and it's been great.
Cool. How about let's hear from Bobbie. Thank you, Amy.
Mhm.
Okay, so hello, I'm Bobbie Roshone, and I am the park ranger for Niobrara and National Scenic River. And I became a mom in October of 2020 during the height of the pandemic. So my whole birth experience, being a mom experience, is totally different from everybody else's I know. But this is Hunter. Actually, this is about a year ago, 4th of July weekend up here in my virtual background. And then this is just from this last couple of weeks. That's my husband Wade in that center photo, and Hunter devouring everything in the refrigerator because he's a bottomless pit like his father. And then those are our dogs, Freya and Princess. Much like Amy was saying, it's all about finding those plastic balls versus the glass balls. And I have a hard rule for work that you only talk to me about work stuff from 8:15 to 4:45, unless something's on fire, somebody's missing, or somebody is, actively in a whirlpool, basically. Then you can call me. Otherwise, it can wait till tomorrow. And that was a really hard rule I had to learn. She said it took her 6 months. It took me, about 6 years to learn that one because I used to be available all the time for work. And now that I'm a mom, especially, I'm trying to kind of narrow it down because I get spread really thin really fast. Because on top of being the park ranger interpreter, I'm also our IT person. I am our EMT. I'm our safety officer and a couple other hats I wear. So I wear a lot of different things. And so it's definitely been busier this year than other years. And I was kind of saying how we had a change in leadership, so we actually have more staff now. At the beginning of this year, we were only 3 permanent employees. So I was also wearing the hat for natural resources and a couple other stuff. And I had to really learn how to prioritize this year, which is really hard whenever you have ADD and you have executive dysfunction and you can't focus on stuff very well. And if you don't have it like a sticky note stuck to your computer, it is something that you will literally forget exists. So I've had to kind of work with how to work with that this year too. And what I find, aside from also finding those priorities and balancing them, I find that I get burnt out really easy, especially if I'm stuck inside a lot, because this has been the year that I've been behind a computer screen the most. And that's saying something because whenever I was during the pandemic, I was teleworking 90% of the time because of being pregnant, and then also just how we were for the National Park Service and how we were doing stuff. I hated being at home teleworking. I burnt out so fast. I burned out even faster this year. Usually I don't get burnt out till like towards the end of September. I was burned out by June this year. And so I had to find new ways to kind of help offset that. And what I found is taking an hour and going out and walking. And so that's the reason why I threw this photo on our presentation, is because I go out every day, rain, shine, or shine. Hunter has a little raincoat if it is raining. But I put him in the stroller. He eats his daily snack in the afternoon, and we do an hour walk. I listen to a book. And that's just how I kind of unwind and decompress from the day. And then when we get home, we play, and we then have dinner and all that kind of stuff. And Dad works usually Monday through Friday. I work Tuesday through Saturday, so we do have a little bit of overlap. And that helps with daycare, because one of my favorite things, like Amy said, is that whenever they run to you at the end of the day, and that's one of the best parts of dropping the kid off of daycare. But daycare is closed on the weekends, so Wade and I switch off. He takes care of Hunter on Saturdays, and then I do it on Sundays to give him a little downtime too. So we kind of have that compromise where we give each other downtime. And then something else having to deal with is mom guilt, because there's times whenever I have Monday off as well. That's my Sunday, and I feel so bad taking Hunter to daycare that day. But that's a great day for me to get the house clean, to recharge, and to kind of realign myself so that I'm ready to go for the next week. Because I have to basically plan out every part of my day anymore if I want to get anything done. So it's definitely kind of a juggling act a little bit. And I just find sticking to a schedule, even though it's hard for me to stick to schedules because my brain goes, ooh, that's pretty, and I get distracted by stuff. But staying on schedule, especially with Hunter, because he likes his regimen. He likes getting his waffles in the morning. He gets mad if he eats anything but waffles and bananas. We tried cereal, we tried other stuff, and he's just like, nope, I want my waffles. And so he really likes the homemade ones on the weekends, but it's a little hard to do, so we usually make a batch and then freeze, and we do that in the mornings. So he's okay with those. But he's really a stickler for routine, and that's helped me get to a routine and stick with it too. So it's been a learning experience, and I'm really enjoying it, but it's definitely a balancing act. Hopefully I covered everything I was going to with that.
You're
Risa, you're
muted,
still
Lisa.
muted.
guess that your son's interest in structure would help you do your balancing.
I know, right? It's worked out really well.
But for sure, his structure about his, pick up and drop off, that
Mhm.
can't not do that. You have to be there, right?
Yeah, you have to be there on time. And what's nice is even though my husband works a little bit longer hours than I do, usually we're both done around 5 o'clock, which is whenever we have to pick him up from daycare. So if something happens at my job where I have a missing floater that we have to go search for since I'm on the SAR team, I can call him and be like, sweetie, this happened. Can you go get Hunter? And usually he can get him. So it works out really well. And the other thing is we try to plan all of our events out so that we can schedule everything in advance. So like we have a fishing clinic coming up on the 25th of September. I already have way like blocked off on his calendar that nothing can happen that day because I'm doing this event across the state. So you're gonna be on dad duty for that day, and it works out really well. And I find that I have great leadership now, and so they're really willing about working with you to plan stuff out so that you're not the only one doing it either. That's been really, really nice. So we actually get all of our divisions involved in all of our interpretive programming now. So it's kind of cool. Like our LEs will take over, law enforcement officers will take over doing ice fishing clinics in the wintertime. And they're working on their interpretive skills, which is kind of cool. So we're seeing these kind of commingling and things. And that having great leadership really helps with staving off burnout.
Would you say some of that from your awareness about plastic versus glass balls and so forth, and the good leadership, is it helping you manage upward a little bit
Yes.
differently?
Yeah, it definitely helps with managing what can bounce and what can't. And luckily I have a superintendent now that's very flexible about, okay, so what can I do to help you get these things done when they need to be done? And that is so amazing to have somebody that's willing to, help flex that so that we can get everything done we need to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps that they are actually a former mom too, so, or they're currently a mom, but they know how it goes being a mom on top of your job.
I was just going to ask if there was a relationship between good supervisors or managers and people who have done the kind of balancing that you are doing now. Probably.
I think there is,
My,
yeah.
I was gonna say my best supervisor had never been a mom before. She was older, never had children, but she just really cared about people, and I think we just had a good open line of communication. But it still took years to get there. And so even hearing your story, I think like a common theme too is just like having confidence to communicate with people like on what you need. And I think as a woman or as a person, a lot of times I was concerned that I was portraying that I wasn't able to do my job by asking for help or saying this is what I need. But when you really think about what you're asking, you're like, well, no, I'm not asking to not do my job. I'm just asking to do my job with this in mind or,
Yeah.
with this caveat.
And see, it's weird because like I had both types of supervisors. But I had the one that you didn't want to ask for help because they would literally tell you, well, it's your job to do it, even though they assigned you additional duties on top of your normal job because the other person that was supposed to be handling them wasn't able to. So whenever you say, well, I can't manage this either, it's, well, you're the young millennial. You should know what you're doing by this point. You can multitask. It's like, yeah, but that's not really how it works in a dynamic office kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have someone that's definitely a lot more like, we're not going to overload your plate just because somebody else's plate's overloaded. We're going to figure out a way to make everybody's plate balanced. So it's really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll serve you all for a lot longer. Well, cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. Does anybody have any questions? Feel free to put it. Well, you don't even have to put it in the chat. You can just unmute and turn your camera on. So here, and continue to think about. If you have any questions, please chime in. But here's some things that we as managers can think about for those that work with us or for us, or even suggest for your workspace with your supervisors or with your peers. We've talked about offer guidance for off hours communication response time, that reading email at the beginning of the day, or particularly if someone was expecting you to respond to your email at the beginning of the day, which I think does sometimes happen. Another one is kind of offer and promote allyship and leadership resources. If you think of, something like this that's going on, please share it. Let's see, one of these studies said employees who have strong allies are happier and less burned out. Yet only 14% of employees really receive allyship training. Another one is challenge and rewarding colleagues to alleviate stress and exhaustion. And, those can be something prescribed or opportunistically just suggest that someone try something different or take the afternoon off, or if something seemed to work, try it again. And then checking in about workload and well-being. Formal evaluations and performance reviews are apparently not held as rigorously and as consistently as they should be, and those should definitely not just be about what's going wrong, but creating an environment where you're talking, even if everything's neutral or even if everything's going swimmingly well, to take the time to talk about it. It both allows for venting and sharing, and certainly is a great leadership exercise if you are a manager. So a lot of this certainly comes down to good communication and offering to do what you might not anticipate just because you might see something that would be helpful for everyone. And it almost always works out that it is helpful. So you guys who are already on the screen, if other things, or Katie or Shannon, if any ideas come to mind, if you're moms. Shannon, I know you are. How you have made an effort to balance home and work life, or how much time you spend with your family versus not. What has made the biggest differences in managing stress and having more time with your family. And great quote here by Michelle, our friend Michelle. We need to do a better job of putting ourselves higher on our own to-do list. I thought that was a great quote. So any thoughts, Shannon or Katie? It's just us girls here, even if there were guys here.
No, I appreciate this a lot. Thank you, ladies, for sharing. And I totally agree. I love the whole glass ball, plastic ball thing because I find myself trying to do everything. And I can prioritize, especially at work, but it's hard. So sometimes I get a little burnt out trying to do um, everything, of course. So I like that idea of thinking of it that way. And I think what I need to work on as well is what you were just saying. We need to do a better job of taking care of putting myself on higher on the priority list. And, it's whether it's like taking a walk and just at lunch and just turning off the computer, or making that time in the morning to walk my dog or go for a walk with my husband. Yeah, I think I just need to do better at setting time away for myself that might just be by myself. So anyway, but I appreciate this conversation today.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Katie? What are you thinking?
Yeah, and just to introduce myself, since we're such a small group, I'm Katie. I'm one of the Wyoming state rec leads for BLM, and I feel like I have a connection with everyone on here. Shannon, I've worked with you for the past few years, and Amy, my parents live in New Braunfels, and Bobbie, I worked at Fort Niobrara National Wildlife Refuge for 2 seasons a few years ago, well, like 10 years ago, actually. And Becca, I think there was some training that we were on, or maybe it was I don't remember what it was, but you had a child with you on screen and you were actively breastfeeding. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is such a great culture that we have here. And so you were talking about like the allies group and everything. And I think this is such a fun group that we should keep going, like a River Moms group. I think that's wonderful. But I have 4 kids. My ranging in age from 8 years down to newborn. And the thing that I've learned over the past, I've been a working mom with all of them, but the thing that I've learned is every season is different. Like every day is a different season, and everything changes daily. So you think you've got a groove, or you think you're burning out and drowning, but then something changes and everything's fine. Or so that's kind of something that I take with me is even if you're in a hard time, it will change and you'll be in a different time. But yeah, this is wonderful. Thank you guys for doing this.
I think my biggest challenge right now with my son, he's 13, and I only have one child. And anyway, he starts soccer practice. It's 3 days a week, if not 4, a game every weekend. And practice starts at 6, and it's over at 7:30. And by the time we get home, he'd be eating dinner at 7:45, 8 o'clock. And we're both like, him and I are like, that's not healthy. You shouldn't eat a big meal and then go to bed. So I've been trying to get him fed by 5. So it's like, okay, do I just start work a little earlier so I could stop a little and prep dinner or take a break, and then, go back to work a little bit later? Because I just really think it's important to cook healthy meals that we can sit down together. And but it takes time to prep a healthy dinner. So it's a lot of organization on Sundays. Oops, did I lose you guys?
No, I can hear you still.
You're
You're frozen, but I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Yeah, just one like that. But yeah, I think it's just really trying to get organized, going shopping, like figuring out what we're going to eat during the week so we can try to prep the night before so we can have those healthy meals together at dinner time. So, but it's challenging getting dinner on the table by 5 and still working all day.
Yeah, I unmuted because I wanted to add in on that one. With our older kids and our busy schedule, and just trying to save money, we try and eat in as much as possible. But it is such a challenge when there's days dinner needs to be served by 5:30. Well, I don't get off till 5, and so we do a lot of cooking dinner the night before and heating it up, or cooking dinner at lunch, or finding crock pot meals. But one thing in our really, really busy seasons, we don't do it all the time, but in our really busy seasons, we have a calendar and we plan our meals for the month. And so that way, that takes at least one thing off of my plate every week. Like I don't have to think, okay, what am I going to cook this week? Like I spend one day and I just plan it out for the month. And then that week, I'm grocery shopping for that week and cooking for that week. But it was something that at first when my friend had recommended it, I thought that sounds crazy. And then after I did it, I was like, oh, I love this. But again, it's work. So we only do it when we're really busy and we need that. But I just wanted to throw that out as a resource that really helped us. Because too, like you're not picking 30 different meals for the month. Like you're going to cook the same thing once or twice or 3 times a month. So you kind of just pop it in on your calendar and pick what days, and you kind of know your soccer schedule, and you can kind of pick, okay, that day I need a really quick meal, or that day I have a little more time. And of course things pop up and change your schedule. But in our really, really busy seasons, that's something that helps our family out a lot.
Same. And what I also do with that is I plan the week's meals around similar ingredients. That way I don't have to buy 6 different meal plans. I can combine things like 2 potato dishes. I'm going to do those different nights, but I'm going to prep the potatoes before I do either one. That way I don't have to sit there and chop vegetables all night either. So something else, and this happened because of my job, it made me a better communicator at home. So I actually asked my husband, because men have different, sorry about the doorbell, I'm in the visitor center and I need to know when people come in. But it encouraged me to actually ask for help from my husband, because men have a different way of looking at it than we do as women. And you have to kind of point things out to them that they wouldn't otherwise just automatically pick up on. Because, all you have to do is just ask me for help. Well, I don't want to ask you every 5 minutes to do something with me or help me with something. So we actually kind of started talking about it more. And so we have a better relationship because of what's going on at work. So that actually takes a big stress off of me, because he will do meal prep sometimes. because usually I'm the one that cooks because I'm the better cook. Even he admits that, so it's kind of nice. But he can grill. So we do, he does the weekends, since that's usually whenever I'm the busiest, and I'm usually also the tiredest by the end of the day, because I'm usually out in the water all day Saturday, and we deal with about 90% of our visitation being highly inebriated. So by the end of the day, I'm touched out and talked out, and I don't really want to do with anything except for Hunter and Wade. So he steps up during the weekends and kind of takes over the meal planning and doing the dishes and that kind of stuff. But we talked it out, and that was a big stress reliever, honestly. So I'm kind of lucky in that regard.
Yeah, I think I like to say being a mom has definitely prepared me for being a federal employee in the recreation world. You're constantly balancing 20 different spinning plates, and that's what mom life is like too. You guys, Bobbie and Amy, you kind of have similar river demographics with your folks floating with alcohol.
Yeah, oddly enough, every river I've worked at, because I started off as a seasonal ranger at Ozark National Scenic Riverways, which is the current and Jack's Fork rivers where I grew up, they were drunk as well. So it's just been, I'm used to dealing with that demographic very well, let's put it that way. From high school to beyond.
Katie, you must have a good system too with 4 kids, with meal planning or transportation or activities, or maybe they're not all with soccer, but you must.
Yeah, it's definitely time management and balance and communicating with my husband, who also works for the federal service. And we recently relocated from Casper, Wyoming, down to Fort Collins, Colorado for a job. And so now I'm commuting up to Cheyenne, Wyoming, a couple days a week. And so we're trying to, like I said, every season, every week changes. So you kind of just have to have the flexibility to roll with things. And um, I like the meal planning idea, but I gotta say I'm just not. It's very hard for me to do the meal planning. So it's something that I need to work on for sure. But yes.
A month of meal planning sounds amazing, Amy.
It's like exhausting too. It's like when I would do it, I would feel so much better and it would work. And then when it was time to plan the next month, I'd be like, oh. But it was helpful. We just do it in cycles. We always plan for the week, but if I can plan a month in advance, then it really is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thanks. So some of these are good, really good tips, and I think it's just great to hear that it's not just me, or it's not just us. Motherhood and working is something that's shared by a lot of people, and I think we're all fortunate to be working with something that's outdoors. And if we were computer programmers and had the same stresses, it might be a little harder to vent, or to do something that de-stresses. Although we need computer programs. Well, I guess we'll. If there are any other comments or questions or sharing or things that have come up, if not, we can wrap and then just talk about some of the other things that we have coming up. Becca.
I think the biggest thing is just make some time for you. Even if it's like 5 minutes, just make some time for you and just do something you enjoy. Reading, hiking, something like that. And just spend it a little bit alone, because sometimes you do need the total downtime of being alone.
Yeah, I think like I've been trying to walk more, like before the baby's first nap, just go for it, because I can go for a pretty good walk in like 15 minutes, and it feels like, oh no, I need to do this or that or the other, but it's a really short amount of time at a nice part of the day that feels like I did something for me today, you know. One thing that came to mind, I think from the Michelle Obama quote, is something that a friend had told me, which is that you're a human being, not a human doing. And it's like so simple, but it's kind of a good mantra to remember. But,
It is. This summer, since I took on the acting program manager for interpretive education, I didn't get to go outside, and usually I walk outside as much as possible. And we have a gym here with a treadmill and elliptical in it. So I started taking about 15 minutes, and I just go and walk or run on one of those whenever I'm here. And that's helped me quite a bit. Or do the rowing machine. So I'm not just sitting in front of a computer screen and driving myself insane slowly. And that's been a big help during the day.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. Well, it's great that it's there and that you take advantage of it, because I'm sure those machines are not like busy 8 hours a day. Good for you.
All right, I guess we can kind of wrap up. We did record, and so we will share that in our River Training channel, and we'll email that out to you guys. And we'll share the links to those studies too, because they're kind of interesting. They're articles about studies, so they're easy to read, not like reading a study. So that's important. And our 2 upcoming river management roundtables are on September 13th. We have the State of Adaptive Paddling, a Veteran Equipment Designer's Perspective. And this will be a really interesting presentation if you do anything related to river access, which I think everyone does, and just how you make that more accessible for adaptive paddlers, like beyond compliance, what is actually useful to people. Is anything else you want to add to that, Risa?
No, Kevin has been doing, he's retrofitted equipment, Winona canoes, for many years, but he also has seen, he does a lot of his work in a scenario like what you see. So he sees what river managers have established for access, and some are really good and some are not great. So he's not like an ADA expert, but he's been at many places where he's seen some terrific and some terrible ways that people are, quote, making river access adaptable. So his perspective is terrific. What do you think?
Yeah. Thanks, Risa. And then on September 27th, Lisa Ronald is going to share some adaptations for how we communicate to increase the relevancy of rivers to diverse visitors. So that'll be really interesting in terms of how we do outreach and things like that. We have lots of other training and events coming up. They are posted on our website calendar. They're also on the River Training Center webpage. Notably, we have the RMS Symposium end of February, and proposals for presentations are due September 30th. So if you are interested, we would love to hear your success stories, solutions, strategies, and it's just a really great opportunity to hang out with other river managers. So we'll send out a survey. I'll give you guys the link in case you want to go ahead. It's like 3 or 4 questions. So we'd love to have your feedback. And yeah, and then also if you have ideas for river management roundtables in the future, if you want to present, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. In closing, Amy and Bobbie, thanks so much. This was, I think, super useful. I'm a mom, and I'm just like, yes, these are really great tips, and just so relatable and so helpful. So hopefully everybody also feels that way. And thanks for joining us. Yeah, thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.